Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and to a new what I eat in a day. In this video I'm sharing a day on my plate with some vegan recipe ideas. So for breakfast this day I just had a yogurt and granola bowl with some caramelized mango. For this I just sliced a mango in half and then I cut it up into small cubes. I added the mango cubes to a frying pan and I brushed them with a little maple syrup and fried them on a medium heat for around 5 minutes until they caramelized. I then took some of Alpro's Greek style vanilla yogurt in a bowl. If you haven't tried this, it's one of the best vegan yogurts in my opinion, as well as their plain Greek style yogurt. And then the granola I had this day was one by KITCHENWARE. I tried a few of their granolas, all of them are vegan except for the one in the green bag. This was the coconut and almond granola, which is basically just nuts, mainly almonds, coconut seeds, coconut oil and some stevia. I like it as an alternative to the more oat-based granolas that I tend to make myself. It's obviously really nutty and crunchy. I added a handful of that in on top of the yogurt and then I added the caramelized mango cubes on top. And I also took half a passion fruit, squeezed that on all over and I added on some hemp seeds as well. This is a great quick and easy breakfast for me, and these days my weekday breakfast is some sort of porridge or yogurt bowl. And as I said, I always go for these Alpro yogurts. They're so thick and creamy. As well as the coconut and almond granola, KITCHENWARE also have a cinnamon and chocolate granola. They're all really delicious and great go-tos for a quick breakfast. And those with the sweet caramelized, almost like candied mango, oh, it's so good. It was all such a lovely combination together. Later on for lunch I made some miso mushrooms on sweet chili hummus toast. For this I drizzled a little oil in a griddle pan on a medium heat. I then took a mix of mushrooms that I had in my fridge. I think there were some oyster, shiitake and closed cup mushrooms here. I added those to the pan and I just fried them off until they were all well cooked. I then made the miso glaze for them. I used a good heaped teaspoon of miso paste. Then I added 1 tablespoon of soy sauce to that in a bowl, along with 2 tablespoons of boiling water. And I just mixed that together until it became nice and smooth. I then poured the miso glaze into the pan over the mushrooms and I just turned them through it to coat them all well and continued frying the mushrooms off until the glaze had reduced a little bit and really cooked onto the mushrooms. I toasted a slice of rye bread and once that was done, I already had some homemade hummus in the fridge, but to it I added some red chili kind of paste, some dry chili flakes and also a little bit of maple syrup to make it like a sweet chili hummus. So I spread that on the toast, a good lot of it, and I also put on a handful of mixed greens. I then took the miso mushrooms and I added those on top, as well as a sprinkle of sesame seeds and also some fresh chopped coriander. You know I love anything on hummus toast for lunch, especially mushrooms and especially miso mushrooms. I love the umami saltiness from the miso on the mushrooms with the savoury hummus, and this one had a little bit of a kick to it from the chili paste as well as some sweetness since I'd made it into like a sweet chili hummus, and I actually could have easily eaten another slice of this. Also using a mixture of mushrooms just switches up the textures I think, and flavours as well. I find different mushrooms have slightly different flavours, so you could use any for this. And again, it was fairly simple, quick and easy as a lunch to put together, but it was just so good. In the afternoon I had a Trek bar. This is nothing new. I think I even mentioned them in my previous video with their newest raspberry and white chocolate flapjack flavour. I talk about them all the time because they're one of my favourites and just a good little afternoon snack for me. This one that I had was also one of their newer flavours, and it was the smooth lemon flavour. So good. It was lovely with an oat matcha as well. Again, something that I have most afternoons to keep me going. The Trek bars always have around 9 to 10 grams of protein in them, and they're like an oat flapjack, but they also have these little Rice Krispies in them. So they're chewy, but with like little crispy bites. And then this smooth lemon one has this kind of lemon flavoured yoghurty layer on the top. It's like a subtle lemon flavour, but it's just really fresh and delicious. Then for dinner that evening, I made a tofu chicken korma. For this, I first made these little pickled red onion slices, which I love putting on top of a curry. I just peeled and sliced a small red onion. I then had a small dish with a little red wine vinegar in. Red wine vinegar works best for this. And then I placed the onion in the vinegar, just turned them through it so that they were well covered in it. And then I just placed that in the fridge. And by the time the curry is done, the onion has soaked up the vinegar and it's like a quick pickled red onion topping. It's so good. Anyway, for the curry, while I had the board there, I also de-seeded and finely chopped a green chilli for the paste. Then over in a dry wok, I added 1 teaspoon of coriander seeds and a teaspoon of cumin seeds. I just toasted those off in the dry pan on a medium heat, constantly keeping them moving for around 2 minutes. Next I added a tablespoon of garam masala, half a teaspoon of paprika, half a teaspoon of turmeric, a quarter of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, and then 4 whole cardamom pods. Again, I just dry toasted those in the pan for around another 3 minutes. I then transferred the toasted spices over to a pestle and mortar, and I just ground those up, in particular the coriander and the cumin seeds, and also the cardamom pods, until they had broken down and blended in with the other ground spices. To that, I then added in 3 cloves of fresh minced garlic, a thumb-sized piece of grated fresh ginger, and the chopped green chilli. And again, I just ground that down until a smooth paste formed. I next added 1 tablespoon of tomato puree, 2 tablespoons of desiccated coconut, 2 tablespoons of almond flour / ground almonds, it's pretty much the same thing, then 2 tablespoons of groundnut oil, and a really good pinch of salt, around half a teaspoon. Again, I just ground that all up. It takes a while to get it going and into a smooth paste, but you get there in the end. And finally, I just added in a small bunch of fresh coriander, which I'd chopped up, and then mixed that through as well. I then took an extra large block of firm tofu and just tore it up into chunks in a mixing bowl. I try and keep these relatively big in size as they tend to shrink once baked. I then added in around 2 tablespoons of the curry paste and another tablespoon of the groundnut oil, just to help everything come together. And I used a spatula to turn it all through. It's so much easier rubbing the paste into the tofu chunks with your fingers, but I didn't want to ruin my manicure. Turmeric is not the one with pale nail colours, but this still worked well. And I then tipped the tofu out onto a baking tray, non-stick baking tray. There's always some little crumbs of tofu and curry paste, but that's okay. I just spread everything out evenly, and then I popped that in my preheated oven at 180 degrees Celsius for 20 minutes. Meanwhile, I made the curry sauce, and for this I diced a white onion. I added a little more groundnut oil back into the empty pan where I toasted the spices. I then added in the diced onion and cooked that off in the oil until it softened, and it had also soaked up any remaining spices that were left in the pan. I then added in the rest of the curry paste, which is around another 2 tablespoons, and I just turned it through the softened onion until it was well mixed through and had fried off for a couple of minutes. I also just shuffled the tofu around halfway through, and then after the 20 minutes of it being in the oven, I removed it and then I placed the baked tofu in the pan. Again, I just gave it another turn over to get everything evenly mixed through before pouring in a can of full fat coconut milk. I increased the heat to bring it to a gentle simmer and left it to gently bubble away. I also then crumbled in a vegetable stock cube, sprinkled in a good pinch of sea salt, and then seasoned with some cracked black pepper as well. I gave it another really good stir through and kept it cooking on a low to medium heat, allowing the sauce just to thicken up a little bit. While it continued simmering, I also just cooked up some basmati rice, and then just before the curry was done, I took some of Alpro's Greek style plain yogurt and added a good 2 tablespoons of that. This is a complete game changer in this. I recommend using this yogurt or at least another vegan plain yogurt. I also added in a handful of chopped fresh coriander and then stirred that through really until the yogurt had completely mixed through. Then once the rice was done and it was nice and fluffy, I served that up first, a little bed for the curry to go on, and then I took the tofu chicken korma and added that on top of the rice. I also just put some mixed leaves on the side. I try and do this especially in the winter when I make curries because it's just a good way to get in some extra greens. I added on more coriander, and then I took those pickled red onions. As you can see, they'd soaked up the vinegar at this point, and I added those on too. This is probably one of my favourite ever curries I make. I say that a lot, and I make a lot of curries. We have curry at least twice a week in some form, but this really is a throwback to how I remember a chicken korma tasting. The korma sauce is incredible. It's so rich and creamy, so easily made vegan, and the tofu, as I've said before, once baked has the same kind of texture as chicken. It's really meaty. This would definitely be a good one to make if you're doing Veganuary this year, or if you're a new vegan and a chicken korma is maybe something you're missing. I promise you won't know the difference, and it's actually even better. Not the healthiest of curries, but it's definitely comforting, hearty, feel-good food. I also usually make a kind of cucumber and tomato side salad to go with my curries. The recipe will be in the description box below for this. It's just a really refreshing and a nice crunchy textured salad, lovely with a hot curry, but works just as well with a mild and creamy curry like this. It's a whole feast. Then for dessert, I had some more mochi. I think it was in my last video I mentioned the Little Moons Belgian chocolate vegan mochi, and this is their other vegan flavour. It's the tropical passion fruit and mango flavour. This mochi is actually made with cashew milk, and they are so incredibly creamy. I can't even tell you how good these are. They're one of the best things I've probably ever eaten. Mochi is one of my favourite desserts anyway, but oh my god, these just have so much flavour. It's like a tropical party in your mouth. To add to the party, I just squeezed over the other half of the passion fruit left over from breakfast, and I mentioned in my last video, but if you haven't tried mochi ice cream before, it's like a sticky, chewy rice cake wrapped around a ball of ice cream. The textures and everything about them is just amazing. If you're in the UK, you can now find the Little Moons vegan tropical flavour in most Tesco stores, as well as Waitrose, Whole Foods, Ocado and Selfridges. That's it for another What I Eat in a Day video. I hope you enjoyed this, and the recipes as always will be in the description box. I'll meet you down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye!